Let's get straight to the point. I, 22-year-old female, am a full-time baker for a small business and college student. I moved back up to my home state in September of 2023, mostly to get away from my toxic family and for better opportunities. Also, to add why this is even an issue in the first place, my brother Jay, 25-year-old male, and I are the black sheep of the family, mostly due to the fact we were born and mostly raised outside of marriage. The teasing and neglect only grew worse after our mother, 44-year-old female, married Jerkfish, 54-year-old male, and had our half-siblings, 20-year-old female, 17-year-old male, 16-year-old male, and 11-year-old male. Now here's the dilemma. My half-sister, who we will call Jojo, 20-year-old female, is getting married to Rit, 22-year-old male, in July. My mom and grandma asked that I make them a wedding cake, which I would have happily agreed to if I was invited to the wedding. The thing is, they wanted me to make a cake fit for 200 people, get a hotel near them. They hate that I'm not a Christian, so they think I'll bring evil into their house, work for 3 days, and get a flight there and back. I'd have to pay for all of it. They think it'd be a nice gift to my sister. I just laughed and sent them my price sheet. They flipped out. I was bombarded with texts from them about how selfish I am, how I am truly vile, how I am toxic for expecting my family to pay for my cake when they could just go to Walmart to get one, etc. Jojo even messaged me on Discord a week after I had sent the price sheet and asked why I would charge her when I made my best friend a free wedding cake. I simply told her to F off, as not only was I invited to her wedding, but I was the MOH. And in a way, it was a returning the favor for being a genuinely good friend and helping me out when I was going through a lot. Jay and his wife had said I'm not wrong for it, and they'd do the same thing, and my boyfriend is on my side. However, a few people in my life are saying I should have just said a simple no instead of sending the sheet, and that my response to my sister was harsh. So I need an outside perspective, hopefully other bakers on here too. Am I the idiot? Update #1. I found out the exact reason for my brother's family and I not getting invited. 3 months after my sister and her soon-to-be husband got engaged, my grandmother requested my sister not invite the sinners. It was more along the lines of, if you don't invite your siblings, you'll get a hefty portion of my will. Don't really know what the proper term for that is, but I digress. So my sister is catering to the needs of my discriminatory grandmother over her own sisters. I also found out another reason, out of the many, why my brother and I were black sheep in the family. So you see, my mother is whiter than paper. My brother and I's biological father is Lakota Sioux Native American. We were told he just left us because that's how the savages act. When in reality, our dad died from a terminal respiratory illness that he had since he was a toddler. Some cyst type of deal? Not too sure. The hatred from them only grew further when my brother married a black woman and had my 3 nieces together. 4th on the way. I told Jojo how hurt I was by picking money over family, but I kinda expected it. She tried to offer me $50 to make the cake she wanted, and I just declined. I shared this post with my brother, and he is rolling while reading the comments. Also, to the people who DM'd me to tell me that they hope I go out of business. My boss says hi, by the way, and that I deserved getting abused as a child because I'm a snot now. F off. Stay awesome and brutal as ever, Reddit. Thank you for all of the support. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. When they can just go to Walmart, I love when people solve their own problems. So you're too evil to be invited to the wedding, but not too evil to gift them a cake worth several hundred or $1,000s? Ain't that something? They aren't afraid the cake would summon Cthulhu or Beelzebub right as the electric slide gets started? Beetlejuice at the very least? And on top of that, you're supposed to pay for the privilege, airfare, and hotel included? Free labor too, as the icing on top? Well, who wouldn't rush to do this? You're denying yourself a great time. They're lucky all you sent was a price sheet. Someone else would have sent them some strong words enclosed in an envelope with folding and insertion instructions. Not the idiot. Comment 2. So, some common questions I had received. Q. Where would I be making the cake? A. One of the family friends' homes. They have a huge kitchen with multiple ovens and space. I've not been on good standing ground with them since I was 16. Q. Why haven't you been invited to the wedding? How'd you get the cake there? A. It's a plethora of reasons. From not following the same religious beliefs, to not wanting to go to school for law or not wanting to be a trad wife. to me not being my hurtful grandma's ass kisser, etc. The list of my flaws, according to my bio family, is endless. I'd have to rent a car to transport the cake. In short, the type of cake they wanted would be $2,300 at the minimum. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my update. It's been a tense few days since I last posted, and I've got some new developments to share with you all. First off, I found out the real reason why my brother's family and I weren't invited to JoJo's wedding. Turns out, my grandmother told JoJo that if she didn't invite us sinners, she'd get a bigger chunk of the inheritance. Can you believe that? My own sister choosing money over family? I mean, I kind of expected it, but it still hurts, you know? But that's not all. I also learned some more about why my brother and I have always been the black sheep of the family. Apparently, our biological father was Lakota Sioux Native American, and we were told he just up and left us because that's how the savages act. But the truth is, he died from a terminal respiratory illness that he'd had since he was a kid. Some kind of cyst thing, I'm not entirely sure. And the hatred from our family only got worse when my brother married a black woman and had my 3 nieces with her. 4th one's on the way, by the way. I tried talking to JoJo about how much it hurt me that she was choosing money over family, but she just offered me $50 to make the cake she wanted. Can you believe that? After everything, she still had the nerve to lowball me like that. I declined, of course. Oh, and get this, I shared my original post with my brother, and he's been cracking up reading all your comments. It's nice to have someone in my corner who gets it, you know? Now, I want to address something real quick. To the people who slid into my DMs telling me they hope I go out of business, my boss says hi, by the way, and that I deserved the abuse I went through as a kid because I'm a snot now. You can kindly F off. I don't have time for that kind of negativity in my life. But here's where things get really complicated. My mom called me up the other day, crying and begging me to reconsider making the cake for JoJo's wedding. She said that JoJo's been under a lot of stress with the wedding planning and that she didn't mean what she said about the $50. Mom even offered to pay me for the cake herself, but only if I agreed to come to the wedding and be a part of the family. I'll be honest, I was tempted. I miss my family, even with all the drama and the hurt they've caused me. But then I remembered something my therapist told me a while back, that I deserve to be treated with respect and love, and that I don't have to put up with toxic behavior just because someone's family. So I told my mom no. I said that I appreciated the offer, but that I couldn't be a part of a family that didn't accept me for who I am. And you know what? It felt good. It felt like I was finally standing up for myself and putting my own well-being first. But now I'm worried about what this means for my relationship with my family going forward. I don't want to cut them off completely, but I also don't want to keep subjecting myself to their hurtful words and actions. It's a tough balance to strike, and I'm not sure what the right answer is. Anyway, that's where things stand now. I'm still processing everything that's happened, and I know I've got some tough decisions ahead of me. But I'm grateful for all the support and advice you've given me so far. It means more than you know. Thanks for reading, and stay awesome, Reddit. Am I the idiot for refusing to make lunches for my step-siblings after my dad's wife threw out my food? I, a 16-year-old male, make my own lunch for school. I started making them when I was 11 and my mom was sick with cancer, and now I make all of my lunches. My dad refuses to give me lunch money for school and said no way in hell to making them. Mom made his, and now he pays for lunch every day. And he doesn't want to give me permission to eat outside of school, which is an option with parents' consent because he would need to pay for that. So I make them. I work part-time and started paying for the ingredients I use in my lunches. My dad got married about 2 years ago. His wife has 3 kids who are now 5, 7, and 8 years old. For about a year, there has been this issue where my dad and his wife want me to make all 4 lunches. They said if I'm making my own, I should make my siblings, and I say siblings because they're not actually my siblings. Lunches too, to save their mom time and streamline everything. I was like, no, and my dad's wife was shocked. She called me out for only making stuff for myself. She said it's crazy that I would look at my siblings and not want to make a few things for them too. It escalated to the point where they said I shouldn't get to eat their dinners if I won't participate in taking care of the family. So I buy my own dinner stuff now and make my own. Now they're calling me out for doing that. They said I could make dinner for all 4 of us, and then we could eat dinner earlier and my dad and his wife could do something else. My dad's wife didn't make lunches for her kids on several occasions to try and make me relent. Their teachers ended up feeding them and writing to her about it. She was super pissed and asked me if I was ashamed. I told her they're her kids and her problem, not mine. I also suggested she take it up with my dad if she's unhappy and wants help feeding her kids because it's not my job. She said if Dad won't feed me, he won't feed her kids. I shrugged it off. Monday was a big day in all of this. I was home alone for hours and made a nice dinner. I was eating when my dad's wife came home with her kids, who were hungry, and she exploded on me and asked if I had made dinner for the kids. I said no. She demanded that I make them lunch for Tuesday yesterday, and I said no. She called me a bunch of names and told me that she freaking hates me because I'm supposed to be a decent kid, and yet I won't help feed her kids, and that it's not how you treat family. I told her that it's not my job and that we're not a family. I pointed out that she married a guy who isn't a good dad to his own kid, and that her only interactions with said kid were attempting to dump responsibility onto him, me, so she really has no reason to think I owe her anything. Of course, that led her to calling me all kinds of things, including an butt. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Document everything and tell her if she refuses to feed her kids again, you are calling CPS. Op, I think that you're the reason she married your dad. She was well aware that your dad was nothing more than half of your DNA. She saw you and how independent you are and said, "Oh boy, free babysitter. And he cooks too. I can dump my kids on him and finally have a life." But then obviously you refuse to play her game and that pisses her off. I don't see that relationship lasting after she loses the kids and the deadbeat she married refuses to help. Comment 2, not the idiot. Not. You need to sit down with your school counselor to explain the whole refuse to provide you lunch money and wanting to refuse you dinner thing. Your dad has a legal obligation to provide you with food. The counselor will keep an eye on you, and if they decide to call CPS to look into your house, all of you kids will be better for it. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. A lot has happened in the past 2 weeks since my last post. The day after the big blow-up with my dad's wife, I came home from school to find that she had thrown out all the food I had bought for myself. She said if I wasn't going to share, then I couldn't keep it in the house. I was furious, but I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of seeing me upset. I just shrugged and said, "Guess I'll be eating out more then." That weekend, my dad sat me down for a talk. He said he understood why I didn't want to make lunches for my step-siblings, but that I needed to be more of a team player. He suggested that instead of making separate meals, I could make larger portions of what I was already cooking and share with everyone. I told him I'd think about it, but honestly, I had no intention of doing that. Things came to a head a few days later when my dad's wife confronted me again about not making lunches. She said she was tired of being the bad guy, and that if I didn't start helping out, there would be consequences. I asked her what kind of consequences, and she said she'd talk to my dad about cutting off my allowance and taking away my phone. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I reminded her that I paid for my own phone and that I earned my allowance by working part-time. She just smirked and said, "We'll see about that." The next day, I came home to find that my dad had canceled my phone plan and taken away my debit card. He said until I started being more cooperative, I wouldn't have access to my money or my phone. I was livid. I couldn't believe my dad would side with his wife over me. I reminded him that the money in my account was mine, earned from my job, and that he had no right to take it away. He just shook his head and said, "My house, my rules." I've been using my school's computer lab to do homework, and I've been eating out more, using cash I had stashed away. It's not ideal, but I'm managing. What really gets me is how my step-siblings are acting through all of this. They've started taunting me, saying things like, "Guess you're not so special now, huh?" And "Maybe if you were nicer, Dad wouldn't have to punish you." It's taking all my self-control not to lash out at them. I've been thinking a lot about my mom and how she would have handled this situation. She always stood up for me, even when it meant going against my dad. I miss her so much. I've also been reflecting on how things got to this point. I realize now that my dad's wife has been trying to assert her authority over me for a while. It started with little things, like criticizing the way I did my laundry or telling me I needed a haircut. I brushed it off at the time, but now I see it was all part of her plan to make me fall in line. I don't know what's going to happen next, but I do know one thing: I'm not going to let them break me. I'll find a way to get by, even if it means eating PB&J every day and using the library computers. I won't give in to their demands, no matter what they throw at me. Anyway, that's where things stand now. Thanks for letting me vent. It helps to know there are people out there who understand what I'm going through. Am I the idiot for hiding my butt rag behind the toilet because my wife won't let us get a bidet? Okay, context. My wife is weird about butt stuff. I'm not talking about intimacy butt stuff. That's obviously personal and up to the individual. I mean her unwillingness to acknowledge that anything comes out of butts or that people even have buttholes. When we bought our house, I wanted to install a bidet, but my wife was against it. I told her she doesn't have to use it, but she said just seeing it would gross her out. I mentioned not feeling clean just from wiping with paper, and she didn't understand. Not everyone has naturally hairless jerks that barely require wiping. She asked if I could find an alternative. I said I could use wet wipes, but they're not flushable. None of them are, by the way, so they'd have to go in the trash. She didn't like the idea of poopy things in the trash can and told me to figure something else out that she didn't have to know about. So, onto my butt rag. I took an old towel, tore it up, and installed a discreet hook behind the toilet to hang the rag. It's completely hidden. The way our bathroom is set up, we only have one. The sink is right next to the toilet. So I'm able to wet the rag, clean up, wash it in the sink, and hang it back up. I swap it out a couple times a week. Gross? Maybe. But I figured that's my business since my wife did not want to hear about my butthole cleaning habits. Recently, my wife and I were showering together and she forgot to bring in a washcloth for herself. I don't use one. I use a sisal pouch with bar soap. I offered to hop out and grab her a washcloth, but she said, "No, don't worry about it. I'll just use yours," and reached for my butt rag. I said, "You don't want to use that." She asked why. I said, "Just trust me." She kept pushing. So I came clean about my butt rag. She was horrified, started dry heaving, and kicked me out of the shower. Apparently, she had been using it as a washcloth for years whenever she forgot hers, which is often. What I don't get is how she thought that was my washcloth, because A, it's hidden behind the freaking toilet, and B, she knows I don't use a washcloth. We got into an argument. From my perspective, it was obvious that my butt rag wasn't a washcloth. All bets are off when you use someone else's stuff without asking. And her butthole hang-up is interfering with my personal hygiene. From her perspective, I violated a clear boundary she set years ago, and I'm just an overall gross person. I did apologize, but I was upset, and my apology wasn't really sincere. I'm sleeping on the couch right now to try and give her some space, but I'd like to know if I owe her a more sincere apology over this butt rag fiasco. I'm really not sure, and her reaction has me thinking that maybe I actually am disgusting, and I'm lacking the perspective to see it. But I also don't think her butthole aversion is normal, and it's the main reason I ended up resorting to the butt rag solution in the first place and not telling her about it. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. How on earth are people defending this? You're using a cloth, washing it in the sink quickly, and then hanging it back up. It had feces on it, for Christ's sake. That's absolutely disgusting. Use wipes, hell, even jump in the shower straight after. But that, my friend, is disgusting, and I couldn't look at my partner the same after that. Gross. Regardless of her not asking what it was, why should she? We're not imagining our partner smearing feces on a cloth and hanging it back up. She's not the weird one. Comment 2, best am I the idiot I have ever read. I was crying laughing because of the absurdity. Not the idiot. How do you tell someone about something they don't want to know exists? If it was in such an inconspicuous location, I wonder why she would think you would have it there. I would love a bidet in my place. I just time everything where I can have a bowel movement and shower after if possible. Not sure what she expects you to do. Enjoy the couch until she's ready to get over it. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post about the whole butt rag situation with my wife. It's been a rough 3 months since then, and I figured I'd give you all an update on how things have been going. So, after the big blowout in the shower, my wife and I had a long talk. I apologized sincerely for not being more upfront about my hygiene habits and for accidentally letting her use the rag without knowing what it was. She apologized for overreacting and acknowledged that her aversion to anything butt-related might be a bit extreme. We agreed to try and find a compromise that worked for both of us. For the first few weeks, things were a bit awkward. My wife was still pretty grossed out by the whole thing, and I was feeling pretty self-conscious about my hygiene habits. but we kept talking it through and trying to understand each other's perspectives. One day, my wife came home from work with a surprise for me, a portable bidet attachment for our toilet. She said she'd been doing some research and realized that bidets are actually pretty common in a lot of countries, and that maybe her aversion to them was more cultural than anything else. I was thrilled that she was willing to give it a try. Installing the bidet was a bit of an adventure. We're not the most handy couple, and there were a few mishaps along the way. At one point, we accidentally sprayed water all over the bathroom and ended up in a giggling heap on the floor. It was the first time we'd really laughed together since the whole butt rag incident, and it felt good to be able to find some humor in the situation. Once we got the bidet up and running, it took a bit of getting used to. My wife was hesitant to try it at first, but I encouraged her to give it a shot. She was surprised at how clean and refreshed she felt afterwards, and admitted that maybe her butthole hang-ups had been holding her back from trying new things. As we continued to use the bidet, we started having more open conversations about our bathroom habits and hygiene preferences. It turned out that my wife had some embarrassing experiences in the past that had contributed to her aversion to anything butt-related. She told me about a time in college when she'd had a bit too much to drink and ended up having an accident in her pants while out with friends. She was mortified and had been trying to avoid anything that reminded her of that experience ever since. I shared some of my own embarrassing bathroom stories, and we bonded over the fact that everyone has those moments they'd rather forget. It was a relief to be able to talk about this stuff openly and honestly, without fear of judgment or disgust. Over time, the bidet became a normal part of our routine, and the butt rag was retired for good. My wife even started recommending bidets to her friends, much to their surprise. She'd come a long way from the person who couldn't even acknowledge that people had buttholes. Looking back, I realized that the whole butt rag situation was really a symptom of a larger issue in our relationship. A lack of communication and understanding around our individual needs and preferences. By being willing to have those awkward conversations and try new things together, we were able to grow closer as a couple and find solutions that worked for both of us. Of course, there are still moments when my wife's butthole hang-ups resurface. Just the other day, I made a joke about getting to the bottom of something, and she gave me a look that could have melted steel. But overall, we've come a long way in the past 3 months, and I'm grateful for the progress we've made. So that's the update, folks. It's been a journey, but I think we're in a better place now than we were before. Thanks for all your advice and support along the way. It really helped us navigate this whole crazy situation. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.